They skirted the kitchen and headed for the bridge leading to the upper compound. They heard the muted sounds of the service as they passed the chapel. Earl Bartholomew was in there, all unsuspecting, William thought with a thrill. He had no idea that there was an army a mile away. 4 of the enemy were already inside his stronghold, and his stables were on fire. Aliena was in the chapel too, praying on her knees. Soon she'll be on her knees to me, William thought, and the blood pounded in his head giddily. That is an excerpt from page 200 of The Pillars of the Earth by Ken Follett. That's kind of getting inside the mind of William, the main bad guy in this book. And Ken Follett does a great job at writing these villains. They are really hateable villains, really unlikable. This guy, William, is just always really, honestly, raping and pillaging as this evil medieval lord. And he starts the book as this young, like 16-year-old entitled brat. And he grows into a really evil kind of warlord almost. And this book is huge. The whole time you're just hating this guy, William, and want to see him get his justice. And in the whole series of Pillars of the Earth, all the villains are like that. And it's so gratifying to finally see these villains, get what's coming to them. This is a really thrilling book, which I did not expect. Because someone told me, I asked my friend, what's a good novel? What's a good book, fiction book I can read? This is like the longest fiction book I had read when I read this. I wanted to get into reading, and I didn't know, how am I going to ever finish a long book, a long novel? Because I only started reading like 4 years ago. I read a little bit in high school and stuff, but I dropped out of college and didn't do as much reading as I thought I would. So 4 years ago, I was 27. I decided I want to get into reading. So I asked my friend who reads a lot and seemed to have a similar taste or fascination, curiosity in books that I did. I asked him, what's a really good book? Like, what's your favorite book? And he said, The Pillars of the Earth. And I said, what's it about? He said, it's about a cathedral in the 14th century. And I thought, okay, it's about a cathedral. And he said, but it's a thriller. And I said, okay, so it's like a 200-page thriller, I guess, in the medieval times. That sounds like it could be cool. And he's like, no, it's like 1,000 pages. And I was like, well, how could it possibly be entertaining the whole time? I said, what it's about? He's like, it's about monks and their life in the cathedral and the people around the cathedral and the town there. And I thought, that sounds like it must be boring, but I'm going to take your word for it. And I'm going to buy the book. So I got it, and I was not disappointed. I could not put this book down. It's one of those stories that starts really, really small and just gets bigger and bigger and bigger pretty slowly. It starts with the first 100 pages, the first 200 pages is probably the best part in the whole series. And it's just, like one small family making their way through the woods in desperate conditions. Winter's coming. They're running they don't have any food. They're looking for shelter, and they're looking for a place to have a baby because the mother is pregnant. And just in the first 150 pages, like what the father character goes through is crazy. It's like this, I don't want to spoil too much, but it's like, Survivor. It's like survival, naked and afraid situation where it's like, I'm constantly thinking, what would I do in that situation? And so it just pulled me right into caring about the characters right away. And, like a lot of modern fiction, like Game of Thrones and stuff, the characters can die at any moment. And that's established pretty early on. So it makes you really hold on to every character. And you're genuinely wondering, who's going to die when. And then the book settles in after the first couple hundred pages, and we see that these characters are setting out to build a cathedral, which is like, you know, a massive endeavor. It's like the biggest, it's like, you know, one of the biggest projects humans could ever do. This is a fictional town that takes place in southern England, but it is based on the area around Salisbury. The Salisbury Cathedral is, you know, one of the most famous cathedrals on earth, supposedly one of the most beautiful cathedrals on earth. And that actually factors into the series a little bit later on. But this is a fictional town called Kingsbridge that becomes a city near the, you know, during this book. And then in the sequel, World Without End, the cathedral gets even bigger, the city gets even bigger. Then there's a column of fire. And then the prequel, Evening in the Morning. So it goes 900s, Viking times. Then it goes to 1100s, the Pillars of the Earth, 12th century. And then 1300s, World Without End. And then the 1500s, A Column of Fire. And throughout this series, the story just gets bigger and bigger as the city of Kingsbridge gets bigger and bigger. The cathedral gets bigger and bigger, more elaborate and intricate and beautiful. And the stories don't directly connect. So you could pick up any of these books and you would understand what's going on. They're independent stories, you know. But the bloodlines connect technically, you know. The ancestors of these characters are in this book. It all connects like that. And there's, of course, it's similarly written, similar characters in each book because it's all written by Ken Follett. But yeah, I loved The Pillars of the Earth. It got me into this whole series. And there's another new one that takes place in the 1700s, but I haven't gotten that yet. I loved how it's just, you know, the way he writes is like a page turner. And I never really understood the appeal of these big fat novels when you walk into Barnes & Noble and they're at the front of the store, you know, and the author's name is in huge letters. I never understood the appeal of those and how they would possibly be entertaining the whole time, but now I get it. You know, this isn't just about monks and carpenters and stonemasons in a medieval village. It does have big thrills. It has a lot of sword fights. Eventually, there's battles, a lot of like raiding and pillaging, kidnapping, and then later in the series, it gets really exciting. I'll do it like a full review of each of these books. It's just really cool how they managed to keep it thrilling the whole time. And Pillars of the Earth is the favorite of the series. It's the first written in the series, although it's second in the chronological order. I'll read the back of this book real quick. It says, Follett risks all and comes out a clear winner, extolled Publishers Weekly on the release of The Pillars of the Earth. A departure for the best-selling thriller writer, the historical epic stunned readers and critics alike with its ambitious scope and gripping humanity. Today, it stands as a testament to Follett's unassailable command of the written word and to his universal appeal. The Pillars of the Earth tells the story of Philip, prior of Kingsbridge, a devout and resourceful monk driven to build the greatest Gothic cathedral the world has known, of Tom, the mason who becomes his architect, a man divided in his soul, of the beautiful, elusive Lady Aliena, haunted by a secret shame, and of a struggle between good and evil that will turn church against state and brother against brother, a spellbinding tale of ambition, anarchy, and absolute power set against the sprawling medieval canvas of 12th century England. This is Ken Follett's historical masterpiece. I highly recommend checking this out if you're trying to get into reading, if you like thrilling movies, if you like medieval times. If you're not a big fan of medieval times, medieval England, then you might not. This might not be your cup of tea. But I always loved Lord of the Rings and knights in shining armor and dragons and stuff. So I love this. It's not fantasy at all. There's no magic or anything. This is just historical fiction, but it's really thrilling nevertheless. Plenty of battles, like I said, a lot of action and chase scenes and stuff, but it still feels grounded and pretty realistic. I'm really curious about how realistic it really is in terms of like the church life and the social aspects of it, because it's written, this was written in the 90s, so 1990s. So, you're looking for something really historically accurate. It's probably not that with the, I think, gender roles and social aspects of it. I'm curious about that though, because it's, if it was totally just modern, implanted on the landscape of medieval, then it wouldn't be interesting at all. He does a lot of research. That's what's cool. Like it follows you through the life of someone who makes cloth, textiles in medieval England in the 12th century, and it's like very elaborate, detailed of their daily life and what that actually looks like. It follows a monk or a prior or an abbot through their daily life in medieval England, and it's really detailed and researched clearly. So it does a good job of showing the geography of the city. There's a map in the beginning of the book. You can look back on to reference later on in all of these books. There's an updated map of Kingsbridge. There actually might not be a map in this first one, actually, come to think of it. But the other ones have maps. And this got me into reading fiction. I looked up, what's the best book I could possibly read? And I found The Brothers Karamazov by Fyodor Dostoevsky. I said, I want to read this, but honestly, I'll get burnt out reading this if I just pick this as like the first book I ever read. So I bought this, and this is the copy I bought, actually, the Penguin. I mean, this was written in the 1800s, so it's like, I thought, I can't just read this front to back as the first book I ever read. So I got this first, and this got my stamina up with reading, and got my focus and retention, like, I don't even know if the word is retention, my focus up with reading. It increased that because it's thrilling and it's like just a page turner. It's really thick, but there's big margins. The words are kind of big, and it's just so fast moving. It's like a TV show. And they did make a TV show of this. I haven't watched that yet. I did watch the second book's TV show, and it was really cool, and it's really fast moving. So if you're trying to get into reading and you like medieval times, I would definitely order this on Amazon or just go to Barnes & Noble. It's at every Barnes & Noble, probably. The Pillars of the Earth by Ken Follett.